1 bit, 2 bit.
Over the last 10 years, car auctions have found a new respectability, like a sort of used car stock exchange. Not only have they become the ultimate barometer for prices, but a source of many of the cars that end up in the dealer's showroom. There's no mystery to it. The motor trade simply gives them a good wash and brush up and whacks a bit more money on the screen. It's easy, honestly.
So, some car auctions can indeed be dumping grounds for the most appalling scrap ever to disgrace tarmac. But go to one of the bigger sites and you stand a very good chance of buying a perfectly respectable car that's as much as 40% less than you'd pay in a showroom. What you don't get at auctions are part exchanges, finance facilities, test drives or blow-dried salesmen. What you do get are bargain basement prices, like this 18 grand Porsche 911.
Or, if impressing the neighbours isn't your bag, then just 3,700 buys this J-plate Lada Samara. While the cynical eyes of the dealer can spot a good car at 200 yards, you'll have to be a shade more careful. Don't just go looking for any old motor, but have a specific model in mind and don't get distracted by all those cheap cars. Arrive with an hour or so in hand before the hurly-burly begins and you've got other buyers breathing down your neck.
Now, don't forget to carefully read the windscreen ticket. Not all auction companies use these, but the more open and helpful ones do. It can tell you vital information like, is the mileage warranted, has the vehicle ever been a total loss, or has it been seriously damaged, and it can tell you whether it's with a warranty or not. Now, don't put too much store by the warranty, because that only lasts an hour after the end of the sale and covers the major mechanical bits like the engine and gearbox and back axle. So if you get it home and you find your aerials broken off, that's just tough.
Nor should you be afraid to ask for the keys so you can crawl all over your prospect, just like the dealers do. You may not be able to move the car, but you can start it, so try the usual test for blue smoke from the exhaust.
This one seems okay. It's just got a light haze of blue smoke, which is permissible. Any more than that, and obviously it suggests engine problems. Next port of call is the glove box to see if we've got a service history. A full dealer service history can tell us a great deal, and we haven't got one here at all, just handbooks, which is a point against the car. Cars like this need to have a nice parade of rubber stamps in the service history. Next is the bodywork. Let's just take a quick tour, and on an E-Reg car like this, we're looking not so much for rust, but for accident damage. And before I've even so much as got out of the car, I've spotted some paint overspray here, which means that the front of the car's had an accident. If we look a bit closer, this bonnet is actually touching the wing, which means that this car's had a punch on the front. So we walk away.
You might reckon this G-plate 25,000-mile Peugeot 205 GTI is a snip at a smidgen under 6 grand.
But if we look very carefully, we can see that the bonnet is a very slightly different shade of paint from the front wing, which alerts my suspicions. Look even closer, and I can just see white overspray on this indicator lens and this headlamp here, which means that the car's seen some action. So there's really no art or magic to it. It's just a question of beady-eyed observation.
Some cars you can virtually buy with your eyes shut, like these ex-rental Vauxhalls. Say ex-rental to most people, and there's a sharp intake of breath. But these nearly new tiny mileage cars are probably the best value, even after this unique form of interior washing. Buy this H-plate Cavalier for 7 grand here, or pay 9 on a dealer's forecourt, or 12,000 new. Your only worries with ex-rentals are the odd cigarette burn and service books that haven't been stamped up. Do make sure that the security code for the radio is still there too.
And you needn't worry about having the stigma of a rental car company name in the logbook. The rental boys quite properly realise that having names like Foot to the Floor Rent-A-Car in the registration document won't help the value of their used cars. So instead, they register them with corporate-sounding names like Provincial Securities Limited or BTI UK PLC.
At auction, however, the signs are obvious. Key fobs and rental litter abound. If the back registration plate shows a small numbered sticker, this was once an Avis car.
Another auction car which is more sinned against than sinning is the ex-company car or fleet car. Listen for the auctioneer to say the words direct. Direct cars are good news because they come directly from the last owner and are usually well maintained and well serviced. and that way there's no shadowy middleman involved to lower the mileage and up the price.
This Sierra may have some leg on it, dealers' slang for high mileage, but at 2,400 it'll make someone a very cheap family hack.
Try and avoid the traders' cars entered specifically for a profit by smaller motor traders and dealers. You can recognise these by the beauty products. They're over-prepared. Notice the very glossy tyres and bumpers, an artfully positioned service book on the dashboard to tell us what a really good car this one is. At auction, you want to be buying a car at rock-bottom money and not paying someone else's wages for the week.
A sexy-looking Cosworth-engine Mercedes 190E may look very tempting at 10 grand, but tread carefully.
Prestige cars like Mercedes need to be mint with perfect paintwork and full dealer histories to make their money. But this one is what we call a repo or repossession, snatched back by the finance company from its owner because he couldn't afford the payments. Repos all too often lead hard lives, so you've got to ask yourself, if the previous incumbent couldn't afford to keep the payments up, what hope for the servicing?
Don't bother with schnorrers like these. For this sort of scrap, the auction hall is the last stop before the claws of the crusher. So much for what to look for. What about the bidding? All cars have a reserve price set by the seller, and the auctioneer has to coax as much money as he can from his sometimes moribund audience. When the trade isn't in the mood to buy, some auctioneers will invent false bids or even announce a car sold when there hasn't been a bid in the place. But this one found a buyer.
Well, it's not a practice that we encourage at our company. However, it does go on at other auctions, and we've got to face up to it. Speaking on their behalf, they would bring the hammer down on a vehicle that is unsold as sold, merely just to create the impression that the bids are flowing, that the sale is much livelier than often people anticipate.
If the bidding doesn't reach the reserve price, the car will be sold provisionally to the highest bidder. This means the auction company will ring up the seller, give him the bad news and ask him if he'll take the lower bid. The old hands use signals to bid. Often the slightest twitch of an eyebrow is enough. You, being a novice, must make your bids obvious and keep eye contact with the auctioneer at all times.
We would advise them to make their bidding clear, make it quick, decide on what they're going to give, and don't give a penny more than that. Don't get carried away with the bidding fever as such and decide that, no, I will give a little bit more after all. Not the time in that 60 seconds, that's not the time to decide that.
So much for the theory. Let's do it for real. I'm drawn to this F registration Peugeot 405 because it's obviously a direct car. It's come straight from a company with no attempt being made to tart it up. It's a genuine 45,000 miler with the desirable automatic gearbox and 1.9 engine. It's got all the right bits and bobs, an electric sunroof, electric windows, electric mirrors, the very necessary power steering, and, most important, a service history. OK, it needs a service, a valet. It's got a cracked headlamp and a thumbnail-sized dent in the boot lid. But that's the total of the bad news.
31, 32, 50, 33 in front of me now, 33, 50 bid, 33, 50 bid, 34 bid, 50 in front, 34, 50, 34, 55, 35, 50, 35 and a half, 6 bid, 36 in front of me now, it sells and goes, everybody else then. Sold you, follow you.
Down to me at 3,600.
Payment is the easy bit. Blokes like me usually have account facilities so we can pay by cheque, but you'll need a £200 deposit and to settle the balance with a banker's draft or building society cheque. I've added 25 quid onto the cost of the Peugeot to cover the indemnity, which is a sort of insurance policy against the car being stolen on outstanding hire purchase, written off or clocked.
Our Peugeot had a warranty, so we were quick to test it within the magic hour. But don't forget to arrange insurance before you leave the site.
So, here we are in our auction Peugeot, and it feels fine. The major mechanicals are fit, it's a proper car, and it looks and drives well. As far as money's concerned, we've had a right result. At £3,600, it's perhaps 2.5 grand less than some of my more rapacious brethren would charge from the showroom. So, back to my first question, are car auctions the motoring slaughterhouses that people think? Not from where I'm sitting. Good hunting.